Has everyone had a chance to preview the minutes? I'm willing to accept a motion for their acceptance.
I make a move that a motion that we accept the minutes from last meeting.
Second.
So it's been moved and properly second that we approve the minutes. I'll start with you, Ken.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Minutes approved. We don't have any old business, is that correct, Ben?
That's correct.
Okay, so we jump right into new business. And if you will give us the, I never remember this word, but.
Staff report.
Staff report, yes, that's it. See, at my house, I don't have a staff.
This is a state law review for proposed modifications to the property located at 1000 3rd Avenue, a property located in the 3rd Avenue Historic District under the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. The property is the historic Leavenworth Junior High School, now the Nettie Harnett Education Center. The 3rd Avenue Historic District was listed in the Register of Historic Places and National Register in 2002. It was built in 1923 with an addition built on in 1999. The proposed work includes window replacement in the front and 2 side elevations, HVAC upgrades, and the addition of interior classroom acoustical ceiling tiles. Replacement windows would meet the Secretary of Interior standards since the windows to be replaced are already replacement windows. HVAC upgrades can be made to meet the standards. The addition of the drop ceilings would change the character of the historic property and we would encourage the applicant to consider keeping at least 1 classroom at the historic height as a representative of the historic character. However, the installation is limited to the classrooms and would retain historic character in the primary spaces of the corridors. At this time, this Board of Education is asking for an initial discussion with you and has not submitted a complete application at this time. Staff recommends tabling the item to a future meeting once a complete application is submitted, but the applicant is here to have that discussion.
Right, so I would open the meeting so that the applicant would you care to go to the microphone, please, and introduce yourself to us? Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Matt Dedeke. I'm the Director of Facilities for Leavenworth Public Schools, and I'm here tonight to bring this subject to you for consideration. I do appreciate your time to consider an incomplete application, as mentioned, for this 100-year-old building that's been in the school district. We respect the historic value that the school district belongs to since 1866. We've been a part of the community as a school district. Nettie Harnett specifically, we are looking at spending some ESSER dollars that still remain in our budget. Part of the ESSER process, from what I understand, is there is some pre-approval that needs to be made or approvals at the state level. Before we get the cart before the horse, we want to make sure what we're looking at is something that the Historic Commission would consider looking into or allowing. Because that is going to take a bit of work on our side with some engineers and architects to put something together as a package. And by coming to you early, we're hoping to get a little bit of direction of what you would like to see for expedited approval if we were to move forward. I'm here tonight as a first look. This has not been brought to our school board at this time. My intention is to gain some feedback from you. And the documents that have been provided have given some direction. We would like to go back, move forward with the design process, and then submit that to this commission as a full agenda, or a full application, I'm sorry. And then at that time, we can have the discussion. If the approval process on your side is good to go, then we can move forward with our Board of Education. And then the state plays a part in there as well. So as you can appreciate, there's a lot of discussion on the dollars that will be spent. and then the process for a historic building of this type. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I did provide some general pictures of the building. Would you like for me to kind of brief you on what I'm here to talk about, or just take questions?
You guys have questions? We'll go through the discussion if you don't mind.
You can direct me. I've got your submission.
Sure.
Up on the.
Perfect. So the pictures you have here are basically the outside elevations of Nettie Hartnett as it is currently today. As mentioned, these are replacement windows. They're aluminum. We have window units sitting in every classroom to provide air conditioning. This building is still operated off of steam heat. That boiler was replaced a few years ago. It still runs off of pneumatic controls, and it still does work. It's kind of hectic to find people that can work on that system, but it is still operational. As mentioned, the back addition with the towers was put in 1999. That's when I began my career with the school district, and it's been in good operation since. Those windows that were put in were bronze. I don't know, that was one of my questions for this committee, is if bronze windows to match that new work would be something that could be considered, or if we would have to look at something of a different color. So as we develop our spec sheets, to help direct us so we don't have too many options out there.
If my input is correct, there has to just be a consistency in them. And pretty much,
Because they are replacement windows already.
yeah.
Are you wanting to keep the bronze?
It was an idea to move forward with the bronze so it matched the back half of that addition.
Which means you replace all the windows in the building.
Correct. It would be a package that we would be looking at, would be all the windows that remain that are aluminum. The bright finished aluminum.
But with the bronze section at the bottom.
They would be a bronze window similar to, and I understand you don't want storefront windows in these buildings. We would probably go back with a divided light type of window, similar to what would have been seen on this building originally. And I think I had some historic documents, the actual blueprint that shows the 9x9 windows that were probably wood framed at the time. So what we're looking at is bronze an option to put in the remaining of the building, or do we have to go with a white window? That type of direction would help us narrow down our design process for specifications.
Reasonable question.
The back half, 99, was bronze, and in your documentation, I know if there's an addition to a historic building, it needs to set itself apart from the original. So I didn't know if that, that's where I'm looking for clarity on windows specifically. So the intention of the windows is to make the classrooms in the building more efficient. I heard a little bit of discussion prior to the meeting. Window units are not incredibly efficient. Brick walls are not incredibly efficient. So we have single pane glass windows in right now. We have tall ceilings in our classrooms and hallways. So when we heat and cool the building, that's a lot of space and there's a lot of energy loss. With our ESSER dollars, that meets one of those components. It needs to impact the environment. So that is one of those pieces that we're looking at. The heating and cooling piece, if we want to roll down, I believe is the next item. And I just gave some visual examples of that would be kind of what I would be looking at, a bronze finish to answer your question from earlier. Something like that in place of the bright aluminum. The HVAC system, we have had an initial walkthrough. I've had some mechanical and some other contractors walk through with me. I have had a architect and a construction manager walk through with me as well. Have some preliminary idea of what this would cost and some options to complete what we're looking at. So they have a refrigeration, heating and cooling system that's called a VRF. So it's basically multiple compressors that would sit outside, and you pipe all your line sets in much like you would have at your home, and you run cassette cartridges in the classrooms in the ceiling, and that provides you both your heating and your cooling from a central location. One of the challenges with this site is it's a very small site. So we would be looking at potentially putting these type of units in a fenced-in closure near the dock entrance, which is on the north side of the building. That would sit near the power supply, and it would be quick and easy access into the basement side of the building. Again, this is initial ideas that we're kind of throwing out, but again, guidance now can save us a lot of time with
back
the
end, yes.
revisiting each time. And to support the HVAC improvements, if that were to move forward, those are cassette-type units that sit in the ceiling. We have open ceilings in these classrooms right now. So we would want to mask that and make it look presentable. So this is a picture of a typical room that's in the building. They have about a 12-foot high ceiling in there right now. We would propose bringing that ceiling height down to about a 9-foot drop ceiling, where the cassette cartridge could sit in the ceiling grid like you have in here, and then do some type of LED lighting to improve the lighting environment. Around the windows, we would box those in typically to preserve the height of the windows from the exterior, and it'll still allow daylight to come in, but it would offset that window, or I'm sorry, offset the ceiling from that window space so that you have a little bit of working room if you ever had to service the window. And that's true in this building itself. On the upper floors, you can see those pockets on the ceiling around the big windows.
So that would bring the ceiling down to about where the lights are now?
That would bring the ceiling down, yeah, right where the cursor is in that area. If we went back a picture, right there on the far wall, that dark rectangle in the center, that is a supply air vent. It would bring the ceiling halfway through that fixture. So you'd be just below the lights, current lights. And I'm looking at that, it could be less, it could be tighter to the ceiling. We'd be looking at how much room we need for the mechanical component of the heating and cooling system. So if it's a cartridge that's 12 inches, we might be able to pull that ceiling up higher. If it's 24 inches, it may have to come to the lower level. Currently,
I just wanted to confirm, when you say box in the windows, that means you're not gonna have the drop ceiling go and dissect the window, it's gonna be
correct.
pulled back.
Correct, yes. So if you typically would have a tall window and the ceiling's lower than the window, you'd come in within about a foot or two, and then you'd box around, creating kind of a window well. So from the outside, you wouldn't see this abrupt blockage on that window, and it would still maintain light coming through. That is in general what we're looking at. We had talked when we walked through with the architect of possibly doing some cloud fixtures or something in the hallway to improve the lighting in the hallways at that building. We currently have some pipes and things that make the school building work hanging from those ceilings. Those could help improve the looks of that space without changing the overall height of the ceiling, because I know that was a concern. We also have, and I don't believe it's going to go anywhere anytime soon, all of our historic documents and items from the district do live at that building. Being our oldest building, we do have what was the old library. It's dedicated for all of our documents. And I think as recommended to leave one space unfinished with the ceiling, that would be the ideal place to have that considered.
Would that be a secure place? I mean, fireproof and stuff like that for the documents?
It's not fireproof, but the building is primarily brick and plaster, so it'd be more smoke damage if something happened. We did take a lot of effort to make sure we had UV resistant lights. We have the blinds drawn so we don't have any kind of degrading of the artifacts. And we do keep it air conditioned and moisture controlled the best we can in a 100-year-old building with window units and steam heat.
And there isn't a sprinkler system in there, or there is?
No, sir,
Okay.
there's not a sprinkler system. We do have, in the 99 edition, which added those towers, that did add fire doors to all of the classrooms, and it created the safe exiting on those two towers. So if there were a fire or smoke event, it would automatically release any doors that are standing open and shut those to help prevent smoke spread, and it would help contain any fire to the area that it would start.
Have you contacted the city reference code for sprinklers since you're now doing a renovation?
I have not. So I'm familiar enough that once we submit plans, depending on the amount that we touch and the occupancy of that space, those are some deciding factors that I know they would look at to whether we have to improve to a sprinkler system or not. We just completed the bond. Lawson was one of those schools that had not been sprinkled. I think it was on that bubble of whether we had to or not, and we went ahead and did it. So I don't know that we would be expecting that this would have to be sprinkled, but definitely we know any major reconstruction does go through the city code enforcement, and they would weigh in on that as well. And so we're approaching this with a general idea of what we would be looking to spend. We have an idea of what we have available to spend. Ideally, we'd love to do it all at one shot. Realistically, this may be a multi-year plan for us, and just knowing that there are some obstacles to getting processes through, we wanted to get ahead of it early and just seek any kind of direction this commission would give us so that we can be as efficient as we can in creating our plans and coming back with you with proper information.
Have you done a cost study as far as once you drop the ceiling, how much does that save you in energy cost versus leaving it open?
No, sir. No, we have not approached the cost savings part of this yet. That is something we would probably ask our architectural firm to help us out with, because I think if we drop the ceiling and improve the windows, we would see a huge savings on our energy costs. But we do not have a study at this time, to answer your question.
Any other questions from up here? Okay. Ken?
Yeah. Are you planning to pursue state tax credits for the storage structure?
That's a great question. I don't know yet. I need to discuss that with our CFO and see what that would look like and what benefits that would bring to us.
Definitely want to do that. You're going to go through all this rigmarole.
Well, you have two options. One is to just go for tax credits. There's also the Heritage Trust Fund that provides additional credits. So you need to go with the state SHPO office and research that, because your historical building, you've got national approval,
Okay.
which then gives you state approval. So use the tax credits that are available.
Okay.
I think it's 30% for
30% across the board.
30%.
30% this year. So on a $2 million project, you're looking at $600,000 in tax. So you could probably sell for 90 cents on the dollar, so you get about $500,000 back.
Okay.
You can sell it for 91 cents on the dollar to Commerce Bank in St. Louis.
That's great
Yeah.
information.
So,
But this is why I'm here.
yeah. But as far as the windows, bronze is fine with me. I don't know how everybody else feels. Of course, I'm the guy who has to look at the windows because I live across the street.
Yeah, you've done a beautiful job on your home. We've watched it be refurbished over the years.
Yeah. So, and obviously the HVAC stuff makes total sense. No reason to not have y'all proceed exactly the way that y'all want to.
I appreciate that. Again, realistically, if we have to piece this together in multi-years, there will be components that need to go together. So it would be maybe interior ceilings and HVAC. That would remove the window units, and then the following process could be the windows, depending on budget that we have available. And if you would be willing to, entertain that as a multi-year or a multi-step project, that would be the other question.
If they do state tax credits, they would have to submit like 3 different things for the different phases, right?
It would depend how they would want the credits. They could do an amendment.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You can do it in phases.
Yeah,
This is phase one, and you go for the tax credits for phase one.
but you kind of got to
Then
have to,
turn around and
you have
do
to
it again.
commit to the whole thing in the beginning of what the phase is going to be. And I imagine they would all go in the summer because you can't be swapping out windows when there's kids in the rooms and stuff like that.
So there would be a fair amount done in fair weather. We had that discussion today with our construction company about what we could do for flexibility of classrooms. So there'd be a lot of discussion internally about creating open spaces in a few rooms that we could do and then move people around. So there'd be a little bit of shuffling potentially. You pay higher dollars for schools when you do everything in the summer because all the contractors are busy doing schoolwork. So if we can utilize off-season time.
November it is then. We'll pay for cheaper.
Yes, so we would look at every option we have to make this project not drag out for our neighbors, make a good improvement for everybody, and ultimately provide us a building that will last for many more years.
So you have a construction company already picked out?
We have a relationship with both an architect and a construction company that we just finished with all of our bonds. So it was an easy call just to ask them to come walk through and give us their professional input. So they provided me some rough numbers today, and we don't have any drawings or anything. The construction company, Napholtz, at the time, they finished a similar project in Independence. It was a much more vast scope, but they did an absolutely beautiful job bringing that building back to a historic level. So, and I have images of those I'd be happy to share out with you if we move forward with this.
Well, you need to talk to the state
Okay?
immediately, because you need to go through the process of getting that approved before you spend any dollars for construction. Because once that construction starts and you don't have approval, whatever's been done cannot be part of the tax credit.
Understood.
So that takes about 45 to 60 days
Okay.
on average to get approved. So you've got the time right now, but sooner than later.
Thank you.
Any other input?
No, sir?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We see we have a few other folks that are.
I would
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, I'm coming to you. I was going to recommend that you get with Bethany offline so she could possibly point you into a few people by name and state that you might want to contact with to kind of help you put that foundation together. That's,
But as far as action, this is not ripe to move on, so I think probably we should table it. Is that what we were doing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Unless we have any more public hearing.
You need to open public hearing if people want to speak. Even though you're not going to vote on anything, you still need to open the public hearing if anybody does want to speak.
right, and that's what we opened with him.
Oh, you did
So-
open the public
Yes,
hearing?
I did open with, I believe I said that this time. So I have two other gentlemen in the room, and I was wondering, do you have any other contribution? No at this point, and yourself?
No, nothing.
Okay. Then if we're fine with that, we will close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion to table.
I'll make a motion to table.
Okay, and it's been moved and properly second to table Mr. Dedeke's representation of what to do with Nettie Hartnett. Ed, I'll start with you for a vote to table.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table at this point.
It was already
It's already moved and
Oh,
seconded, I just
okay.
need you to vote.
Oh, yay.
Thank you.
Aye.
And aye. So it's tabled until further notice. Thank you very much. Well, we greatly appreciate that. That way I will save everything that I have in this packet. So the next thing that I see that's on here is, I thought was what, a certificate of, minor certificate of approval.
There you go.
Oh, thank you. Some days I read better than others. And there's a couple items on there. I don't think we have to do a full review on the certificates of approval. I think we're correct on that one.
Correct, yeah.
And is there anything else to come before us this evening?
Not tonight, but we will be having a meeting next month.
Okay. Well, if that's it, as usual, I'd like to thank the staff. I'd ask you to all join me in a round of applause because our other member of the staff has returned, and it's nice to see her, so
Thank you.
you're very welcome. I tried to get her before it started, Bethany. However, this is probably the proper conduit, because besides printing off all the stuff, just, you guys have a lot of institutional knowledge that I acquired from these two guys, so it helps us do everything that we're trying to do. So if there's nothing else or any other comments, I'll entertain a motion for closure of our meeting.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we close this meeting. Ed, I'll start with you.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. And that's it.